Ready.
Okay, I'm here with Miss Athena, and it looks like we might have our buddy come up here. Well, she's not ready for that yet, but that's okay. Miss Chloe's thinking about coming over here. Athena, why don't you come over here and get this treat? She's like, I'll think about that as well. All right, well, this is the roadmap to success. Now, basically, Chloe, I keep on going to call her Chloe, Phoebe has only been here for about a month. There's something called the 3 3s when you adopt a new dog. 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. 3 days, they're in shock. 3 weeks, you're starting to see their personality. At 3 months, you're actually seeing the dog's personality. So she's still kind of finding her way, for lack of a better word. So the video above will go over how to help exposure and socialize her. But a lot of people think, I'm just going to take my dog to a restaurant around a lot of people. Some dogs will shut down. They don't feel comfortable, so they just shut down. And we misinterpret shutting down as acceptance. Sometimes they just are surrendering. So what we'd like to do is go slowly in her pace. My tests, can I get a dog to sit? Can I get a dog to take a treat? If it won't sit or won't take a treat, that usually means that it's too intense and I move the dog 5 or 10 paces away. Try again. And so for her, we just want to make sure we're not taking her to situations that are too advanced. I think it's going to be hustle, bustle, loud noises is probably going to be more advanced than she's going to be able to deal with for now. All right, so we start off by going over marker words. The Guardian already knew what a marker word is, but we reloaded it. I'd like you to try to remember this because you won't see this video for about a week. But basically try to walk around the house and yes, treat, and definitely have your partner do the same thing. So that way both dogs understand that when you say yes or the partner says yes, or if you do it in the kitchen, the dining room, the billiards room, wherever it is, that the dogs understand that that means I did the right thing. Look how much braver she is coming right by in front. Yeah, she's like, I want more of those treats. All right, let me see. What else did we go over? We also went over hand targeting as a way of practicing using our marker words. Hand targeting is teaching the dog to touch his nose with the hand. Now, if you want a refresher on that one, let me know, and I'm happy to kind of share. I have a video specifically on that for you. And but I use that for really to practice your timing, but also it's a nice way to get the dog to follow your hand this way or this way. I can use an alternative recall, and especially for her, it might be a nice thing where Phoebe starts playing the game with you and your partner. Then maybe you have a friend come over. You do it with your partner, back and forth, back and forth. Your friend sitting on the floor. Then your friend does it. She runs over and touches her nose to her hand. Tell your friend not to pet her, but now she chose to interact with them and something positive happened to her. So that's the whole name of the game is we want positive. There we go. So I left a treat there. So she's coming over and she's going to see if she can get it. You want me to help you or you want to get it on your own? She's like, I want it, but now that you're touching it, I don't know if I want it anymore. So we'll put it right here again for you. And you can get that whenever you like. All right, so this is kind of not for you. I know you will eat it, yes. But this is sort of thing that, yeah. All right, well, I'll go ahead and give it to you that way. Well, you got to be faster. Yes, and it's not that she doesn't want the treat. She's just too scared to come and get it. And so, come here. There you go. All right. So let me see. So hand targeting can be a little bit of a consent exercise. We also went over, speaking of consent, we went over the consent exercise. So remember, dogs don't like it when we start petting them on top of the head. They prefer being petted on the chin or under the chest, under the chin or on the chest or on the shoulders. Now you can pet the dog on top of the head. You just don't want to start. So if I'm petting here and I work my way up from top, that's okay. Now you're going to find yourself going like this. She gave me a cutoff, so I don't just immediately go underneath. And after a while, you're going to get in a habit of not starting to pet them on top of the head. Again, it's just general rule of thumb, don't look at dogs directly in the eye when you're approaching them. Try to approach them kind of a meandering, rounding way. And then when you approach, especially for her, it'd be nice if people, when they're offering treats or extending their hands, are doing it off to the side, not front facing. And just ask, hey, can I meet your dog? She's so cute. Yeah, we just ask people to hold their hand out, see if she wants to meet you. How's she going to tell us? Well, if she touches her nose to your hand, then she wants to meet you. If she doesn't, it's her way of saying she's good. And again, it's a nice way to help educate other people for dog consent. But also now your dogs are like, if I go like this, people don't mess with me. A lot of dogs develop a nipping habit because of this, and a lot of times when they're overly fearful. So Phoebe doesn't strike me as at all an aggressive dog, but sometimes if she nips somebody and they back because they scare her and they back away, that can generate more of that behavior. And that's why we went over the celebrate lesson. The celebrate lesson is rewarding your dogs when they offer behavior that you find desirable that you don't ask for. So your dog comes to you, yes, and pet. They sit, yes, and pet. They lay down, yes, and pet. They drop an object. They go to the dog bed. They eat their food. They drink their water. Anything you find desirable. They do the action. You say yes, and you pet them afterwards. Scratch them on the bottom or whatever it is. Now, the idea is really to identify it. So if I'm sitting here and let's say Athena was across the room and she's walked up to me, she's walking towards me, I know she's coming to me, I would say come while she's a couple feet away. She's already coming to me anyways. Remember, the cue always comes before the action. So although she started the action, she hasn't arrived. So I can say come, she arrives, I say yes and pet her. Now I'm starting to make that come into more of a stronger, reliable cue. And yes, so you just, little Phoebe just went and laid down. I said yes. Now for me to go pet her, she doesn't want me to pet her. So I'm just going to say yes, but you should always follow the yes with a pet, a treat, or attention. So celebrating is when they do the things that we want, we just mark and reward without asking for them. And if we see our partners not paying attention and little Athena walks up to me and sits down and I'm not paying attention, you say celebrate, I say yes and pet under the chin. I don't need to know what it is. I'm just going to count on my partner that they saw something I didn't see, but you really want to become mindful of it. Now, if Athena walked up and sat down, I said yes and petted her, I continued my conversation. I did not even break my sentence. If you get into a habit of doing this, it'll take you about 2.5 months to get in a habit. Once you do, every time just about you pet your dog, it becomes a micro dog training session that boosts your dog's confidence, helps with self-obedience, helps them respect you a little bit more as a leader, and you do it without even realizing the fact that you're doing it, but it only works if you get in the habit of doing it. Now, we also went over the manners lesson. The manners lesson is if the dog's pawing at you, nudging at you, barking at you, you're going to tell them to sit, touch, lay down, something they know how to do. If they do it, when you ask the first time, then you say yes and pet them. If you ask them to do it and they don't, within 2 seconds, I'm not going to ask multiple times. The more you say it, the less you mean it. And your dog will get used to not following through. Remember, half of how dogs learn is not doing the thing that we want and then not being rewarded. So if the dog chases a goose, and the goose always takes off. Dog chases the goose, it takes off. After a while, the dog learns, I can never catch this goose, so I'm going to stop doing it. We call this extinguishing the behavior. The dog stops trying to do it. Now, probably hard because dogs are going to like to chase goose because they move away. But if it's non-reinforcing. So if I sit in front of you, you don't pet me, well then does it something you really like? So the more that we reward and pet them for sits, for downs and all that, when they do it on their own for celebrating, the more they're likely to do it. And when they ask us for attention by barking or demanding it, we say sit. If they sit, we say yes and pet them. If they don't say sit, or they don't, well, they shouldn't say sit, but if they don't sit, then we just go back to doing whatever we're doing. We're only going to ask one time, and the dog recognizes by not getting the reward and not hearing the marker word, I didn't do what she wanted, now I'm not getting attention. Now remember, all attention is rewarding. So if she's whimpering or barking, you say be quiet, you're making her more likely to do that in the future. So instead, what we want to do is just be very calm and quiet about it. And if the dog barks, don't even look in their direction, because again, that's rewarding that behavior. But we want to instead reward the heck out of the behaviors that we do like, so hopefully that's what the dog offers us. Now, we also went over, in addition to consent, we went over dog body language. So remember, watch how the ears, and message me if you forget these things. But you want to kind of look at your dogs when they're neutral. How are their ears positioned? How do their eyes look? What's the tension in their face? How do they carry their body? How are they breathing? How are they leaning? How is the tail moving? Or where is it positioned? Then when somebody comes that they're very happy to see, what are the changes in those things? And then when we're out and about and we see a different tail move that's not associated with neutral or excited, we know there's another emotion at play, and we try to figure out what it is. Now we start recognizing, you know what? When Phoebe is uncomfortable, she does this. So if I recognize her doing that the very first time she does that, I'm going to immediately move her away from whatever the thing is to help her. So if she communicates at level 1 by lowering her tail, she's uncomfortable. And then the thing keeps on happening. So she rotates her ear back. And then the thing keeps happening. She kind of lowers her bottom a little bit. Keeps on happening. She growls a little bit. Keeps on happening. She's having to raise her voice. So the more, oh, there we go. She got a little something. That means she's feeling good. That's the first time she's grabbed something when you've been here. Now, somebody says an oral fixation, but I think she wants to play with the little green thing. And so it's a nice indication she feels comfortable and relaxed enough to do it. But I've been there 3.5 hours, haven't tried to pet her. So she's starting to feel more trust. Let me see. And that's shredding behavior. That's a very natural way of relieving anxiety. So we did talk about enrichment as well as exercise. Remember the paper towel tube? Grab a piece of paper, put a piece of kibble, crumple it, another piece of kibble, keep on doing that until you have a wad with about 5 to 7 pieces of kibble. Shove it in the empty paper towel tube, put 1 or 2 pieces of kibble in between, crumple it up, do it again, fill that sucker up. So there's 5 or 7 pieces in a paper towel tube. Toilet paper tube, maybe there's 3 or 4. Go to, there's a cool app I've heard of, it's called TikTok. And if you go there, there's probably, look for enrichment, look for the hashtag dog enrichment. There's a whole bunch of different things. So if we can come up with some things for the dogs to do, it's a nice way for them to get some exercise without us having to do it. I would recommend getting a snuffle mat. The one that I like is the Rundik, R-U-N-D-I-K. If you can't find it, message me. I can share you a link to it. But it's a little different than what I showed you. But you flip it over, all the tassels come down, you flip it right up, and you kind of waterfall the food in. The kibble goes in here. She's got to use her nose to find it. That makes like a short walk. It also boosts her confidence because she's finding and hunting her food. It also gives her something to do and slows down the feeding. Celebrate? Yes. That's okay. You're about to drop your clicker. So that movement of the chair startled her a little bit. Because of cortisol in her blood, she's a little twitchier because I'm here. After I leave, she's going to be exhausted. But that is great that you were trying to do that. And after a while, they'll kind of get used to it. Right there, you try to do it. Yes. Yes. There we go. It's like, yeah, look at that. I leaned into it. If I lean in or kiss or my nose goes up, those are good indications I like something. And a little bit of a nudge right there. So that could be a little bit of manners. Now, for a fearful dog, I'll let them nudge and give them pets and attention. But after a while, every once in a while, try to ask for a sit and then give her the attention. We do like taking care of fearful animals and stuff, but a lot of times we over-nurture them and we kind of hinder them. We hinder their progress because they don't have to grow because you're just nurturing me. And I read an article about a guy in England that adopted a dog, and then he hurt his leg. And then after a while, he noticed his dog hurt his leg. And so he kept on taking him to the vet, and the vet couldn't find anything wrong. The dog was just emulating. The guy had a hurt leg. The dog was emulating that sort of thing. So dogs are smart creatures. They want to emulate us and do things for us. And so the more that you kind of recognize that and provide enrichment when they are asking for it, the better. Or attention. But again, trying to build that confidence and teaching her to sit before we pet can help insulate her. Now, we also talk about exercise. They like to play fetch, but they don't always bring the ball back. So when you throw the ball, as soon as they get one, just call them over to you. And let's say she's got the ball and she doesn't, and she's trying to get the ball from her, call them both to you. So the dogs, it's kind of like what we showed you at the door. We want to kind of get into a habit by helping them practice one step of something. So after I throw the ball, I'm just calling you here. And whether you come to me with the ball or not, I don't really care at first. But after a while, the dog carries the ball and then comes back. Then you hold a treat out, they drop the ball, yes. And then we pick it up and throw it again. Now we were teaching our dog to fetch. They're little dogs, so it'd be a little bit more of a challenge. But if you get those harnesses that have the little saddle bags, doggy backpack, you put little bags of sand, that makes the walk a little bit more efficient. I would get a retractable leash for Miss Phoebe, and then you can go to your stairs and go to the top of the stairwell with an empty stomach, show her you have a treat, and throw it to the bottom of the stairs. She runs down and licks it. She's at the retractable leash, so you can stand it. And then when she gets it, you say yes. Call her to. She runs to the top of the stairs, say yes, and give her another tiny treat. Remember, treat as small as you can get and as low value as you can get. So count each down up as 1. The first time you do it, keep doing it until she won't come back. And let's say she gets 44 up downs. Okay, well then that's her maximum number. Then I try, before a guest come over, we're gonna try 15 up downs. How does she behave with the guest? Or before we do this activity or that activity. Remember, exercise or mental stimulation needs to come about every 2 to 4 hours. So the doggy stairmaster could be a nice way for her to burn some energy. I talked about meeting people outside the video above, so I'm not going to talk about that. But there's also scent games. We went over Cookie in the Corner. And Cookie in the Corner is a great way for the dogs to practice doing a find it game, looking for something with their nose. And there's a lot of scent courses. So I'd like you to DIY enrichment on TikTok or Google or wherever. I'd like you to also look for, what do you call it? I guess, well, let me see. I was talking about enrichment. What else was I talking about?
Like scent games.
Oh, scent games. Thank you. Yes. That's a type form of enrichment. But I would look for scent games specifically. Now, there's a whole bunch of free ones out there. There's courses you can take, and those are great to do. But start off with I'd like you to find like 3 or 4 different ways of exercising, giving your dogs enrichment. and then 3 or 4 different scent games that you can do inside. So that way you can start exercising every 2 to 4 hours. Get a lick mat, like I talked about above, those, and get the lick mat that has suction cups. So it'll stick on your floor, and that way they can't drag it around. And get them used to using that without any scary people first. But when you do have guests come over, that would be definitely a nice thing to pull out. And eventually you start putting it in a plastic bag in your freezer, and then take it out of the plastic bag. It's frozen. It makes it last longer. You can also, in a pinch, you can put a little cream cheese or peanut butter on a spoon and let her licking on the spoon while she's looking at your friend who's visiting. Let me see. What else do we cover? Omega Paw Tricky Trainer Treat Ball. That's that orange ball that I went over. Let me see. Some rules. Try to incorporate some rules. She just shook it off. That can be a way of releasing anxiety. So especially for Miss Phoebe, if she shakes it off, yes, and scratch her bottom. You let that tension go, girl. Let me see. So some rules. So sit before I start preparing food for you. Sit before I open the door. Sit before I put your food down. Sit before I start petting you. There's a book called Nothing in Life is Free, which means you ask the dog to do something before you pet it. That's probably a little bit too much. But again, helping the dog understand what I can do to contribute to the group can make me feel better and confident. But if she's fearful, you can go ahead and just pet her, just like rubbing our shoulders if we feel scared. That can be a helpful thing. All right, what else do we go over? She's like, I don't know, give me more treats. Is there anything else you want me to cover? Oh yeah, let's talk about the exercises we did. So the exercise we did, we're worried a little bit about the dogs running away. So I had the guardian, first of all, just teach the dog to go to the dog bed. So I would touch let's say the dog bed is here. So I touch the treat to the dog bed, to the dog's lips, and I try to lure the dog. I don't want to throw this way or over their head because they won't see it. So I lure them to look in the direction that I say, place, and throw the treat on the dog bed. When the dog steps on the dog bed, you say yes, and then give them a treat. If they sit down on the dog bed, I say yes and give them another treat. If they lay down, yes and give them another treat. Any interaction with the dog bed, I'm going to reward. Now, first we're throwing the treat to get the dog to go there. Although we struggle with that, we're luring her. And you can also use hand targeting, lure her onto the dog bed. But eventually what it is, you want to say place, she goes to the place, and you say yes, and then give her the treat without throwing it. Now, there's a transition for this, and that doesn't come right away. So I would say, place, throw it, yes, when she steps on it. Wait for her to vacate, repeat that. And after maybe the 3rd practice session, I do this maybe about 10 to 12 treats. The 3rd or 4th practice session, every 5 times, I do it 4 times in a row. The 5th time, I would just say beach and point, or beach, place and point. If she goes there, yes, and give her a treat. If she doesn't, then I touch it and lure her on like before. That way, every 5 attempts, we're trying to see, has she picked up that verbal cue? It'd be nice if you go to the door, she follows you, you say place, she walks over and sits down in the dog bed. And we're doing this independent of anybody at the door. The door's not open. We're not opening the door. There's no knock at the door, so there's no reason for excitement. We're helping her, yes, learn the skill without any challenges. Eventually, then you want to put her, when you can tell her to do that, then you say place, she goes in place. And then you take a step to the door, turn around, come back, say yes, and give her a treat. Take a step to the door, turn around, come back, say yes, provided she stays in her place, give her a treat. Do that about 3 times. Then you take 2 steps to the door, turn around, come back to her, yes, and give her a treat. Do that 3 times. And eventually you get to the door. And you're not touching the door, you're not touching the handle. We're just doing this step by step by step. Eventually you get to the door and you reach for the handle. Pull back and go back to her, yes. Let's say if I reach for the handle, she gets up. Well, then I would put her back in there, tell her to place again, and I would reward with a pet instead of a treat. And then I might go back, instead of going all the way, that's what caused her to get up before, I'm going to go up to a half of that step. I want to go to a previous level of success, practice that 3 or 4 times, then maybe I go to 75% of the way. Go back to her, yes, give her a treat. Do that 3 times. Then touch it. Then eventually jiggle it. Then jiggle it a little bit more, jiggle a little more, all the way. Then I'm opening and only an inch and closing it. But don't go too fast. That's the most common mistake people make. If the dog gets up, you add too much criteria. And eventually you want to get to the point where you open that door, and then there's a passageway, you pick it up and go back, and she's staying in the dog bed. And you could even come up with a release cue, maybe say off duty. The way I would do that for this is, let's say she's on the dog bed that you want her to stay, and I would say off duty, and throw a treat off to the side. So and I wouldn't throw it towards the door, off to the side this way. So off duty means we're done. You can have privilege to exit the dog bed. Now we also went over a desensitization counter conditioning exercise. And because of the 4th of July, I would start getting a couple recordings of audio of fireworks. And there's different types of fireworks. There's the firecrackers, there's the bottle rockets, there's the big bombastic ones, and there's those big shows. Don't get away with any music. but look for 5 or 6, 8 different fireworks sound recordings on YouTube or whatever. Start playing them through your speaker. Do you guys have a speaker?
Yeah.
Whilst they're eating their food. If they stop eating their food, it's too intense. Find the low enough volume where they eat their food, and then each day raise it a little bit, provide they're eating all their food until by the 4th of July, it should sound like your neighbors are like, what are you doing in your apartment, weirdo? Well, we've desensitized our dogs, and that's going to be probably the most important thing for them because of you live in an apartment. You can also do the smell with a smoke bomb or something outside. It would just be hard to do on your patio. But there's a lot of sulfur in the air around the 4th of July, so that is helpful for them to smell that and get treats. What we were doing is basically counter conditioning at the door. So we were knock lightly, give a treat, as long as the dog doesn't bark. Then knock a little bit harder, give the dog a treat. Harder, harder. So when I do this, I get to the point where it's just one single knock until eventually like bam. And then yes, I give the dog the treat as long as they don't bark. Then when I go to two knocks, I go very lightly. Knock, knock, treat. Knock, knock, treat. Now I was having you say yes. You don't technically need to do it for desensitization. You just knock, the dog doesn't bark, yes, you can give them a treat. You can say yes, it doesn't hurt. But eventually that knock means that somebody is gonna do something, I'm gonna get a treat. Rollers in the hallway are also something that causes them to be responsive to. So find a roller cart, get one or borrow one, use your suitcases or whatever it is, recreate that when you have time to do it so you can help them practice that. At the same time, when you can't practice that, maybe we play classical music, play KCRW Eclectic 24, whatever it is, so they can have that masking sound so they don't hear it quite so much. And also, don't be afraid to use exercise to set them up for success. We talked about the doggy stairmaster. Let's say at 4:35 is when everybody starts coming home and the hallway's busy. Well, then maybe we do that at 4 o'clock. We always want dogs to have about 10, 15 minutes after exercise to kind of recover. Then the next thing happens. So if you exercise them ahead of time, that helps them be less reactive. Now, while I'm looking at it, she is just curled up into a little bit of a ball, kind of in the fetal position. Now, for dogs, yes, front-facing approach is confrontational. So if she is not comfortable with somebody, she's going to be standing probably and staring directly at them. Eventually, she sits or lies down, but she's still staring at them. She's staying. I still consider them a threat or somebody I got to keep my eye on. When she starts kind of turning her head away, that's a feeling, laying down or sitting on her own is a way of saying I'm a little bit more comfortable, but I'm still facing you. When she starts turning her head away, and she's got her head turned away now, she's saying more comfortable. When she lays with her back to the person, she's saying I'm pretty comfortable with that person. This is probably not going to go as fast as it does here. So again, I would meet outside, do that treat trail like I talked about. Try to do that at least once a day, but if you know somebody's coming, maybe do it 2 or 3 times a day beforehand. And get that lick mat and give her practice using those, because that'll really help with the E-man and as well as any friends and people that you have come over. But it just sets her up for success. Anything else you want me to cover?
I just have a general question.
Please.
So if I wanted to do like the training sessions every day, if I wanted to work on like doing the exercise at the door, like is it effective that I try to do that every day, or can I do it like 2 to 3 times a week and then work on other things?
Training is a numbers game. The more you do it, the better, as long as it's not overwhelming for the dog. Some people do it too much and the dog has a meltdown. That's not healthy. But I mean, like I mentioned, I would try to do it like if you're going to go make yourself a coffee. Go grab 5 treats and do the knock at the door 5 times, then make your coffee and then go back to doing what you're doing. Same sort of thing, you're watching a TV program, you pause because one of you goes to the bathroom, go over and practice, go to the dog bed. Or whatever these hand targeting, whatever the exercises are. Remember, the maximum training session should be about 3 minutes, but I usually go from about 60 to 90 seconds, always end on a good one. But just periodically treating throughout the day or practicing throughout the day is a great way to do it. Remember, that's a nice mental stimulation. So if they're demanding attention, you say sit, they say sit, you pet them, and they demand attention again. Spend a couple minutes doing a little training session. You'll be amazed how quickly you get this sort of energy. So yeah, as much as you can, try to set like a core. If I'm doing like a core exercise, let's say we're working on hand targeting as my core exercise, I'm going to do that one breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I want to separate my several hours. That goes in the long-term memory a little bit more consistently. And then I might throw a little hand targeting here as I go to the bathroom or whatever it is. And you can do as many as you have time to, but I'd rather you do 2 or 3 a day and get in the habit of doing that every day than what I found, the skipping, you can absolutely do it. But what I find is when people skip, a lot more skips happen, and you just do it less and less and less. Just like anything else, if you get in a habit of brushing your teeth, or your parents do that to get you brushing your teeth, and you feel weird by not brushing your teeth. Working out, you feel unhappy if you miss your workout, even if you don't really particularly care for your workout once you get in a rhythm of doing it. So try to set a goal for maybe like you have two dogs, so maybe I'm just going to do each exercise with each dog 3 times a day. So that's a minute here, a minute there, and then 3 times a day. That's like 6 to 10 minutes. And just get in a habit of just biting off one of those. Maybe just doing the knocking at the door, because you don't want them to knock at the door. Practicing that one. Once that's taken off your list, then what are we going to replace those 3 with? Now I'm going to teach Bang You're Dead, or something cute, or go to the place or whatever it is. So it's whatever works for you and your lifestyle, but the more that you can, the better. But just make sure they're short, and you always end on a success. And also, if the dog is starting to get bored of it, stop early. And if something's going to distract you, let's say that you're in the middle of doing hand targeting, and E-Man is about to pop through the door. Go off duty first. We don't want to have them get distracted in the middle of it and try to run away and elsewhere. Any other questions? Okay. Now, again, anytime you have questions, I want you to call or text me. I'll be mad at you if you have a question you don't call me, because I can only help you. Like those amazing people that, like if you have a question or a problem on TikTok and you reach out, some nice person helps you. It's nice to know that they're there. So I want to be there for you. So message me anytime you have any questions. All right. Well, Miss Athena, this good-looking girl is Athena. And over here, we can pan down and show the cuteness. Make a kissing sound. Yeah, and that's Miss Phoebe. And this is Phoebe and Athena's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.